What's up, guys? Today we got the 2024 in the bag. What I threw most of my season, with some discs being recycled in and out throughout, or I probably lost them. We're going to start with my putters. I am sponsored by Innova through 2024, and obviously I will be putting with Innova putters, and that's going to start with the Nexus AVR. The Nexus AVR is a great firm, but still a soft texture, so it helps when it's a little bit colder outside, and it's not slick in the hand, and that's really what I care about. These are my main two putters, and then I've got 5 in the bag for practice rounds, 3 in the bag for tournament rounds, just in case you lose one. You never know. Next up, we're going to be rocking with putters, my throwing putters. I have 4 different throwing putters. I have my forehand, almost exclusively, which would be the Calvin Heimberg Toro Champion plastic. It just fits my hand really well for the forehand, and I haven't found another forehand disc in the putter division that is this good. I played with the Rat for a little while, but it ended up being a little too straight for me, and it's not quite as torque resistant as the Toro is, and my forehand is not perfect. Next up is the AVR3. This one's Star, and the reason I like this one specifically in the AVR3 for throwing is it's a little bit deeper putter, so it sits in my hand really well, and it's stable. So it's not so overstable that it will just fade right out of my hand, but I can put it on a straight line and just watch it fly. Next would be the another Star AVR3. This one's been in the bag for 5 years though. And I believe it's older than that. I think I acquired this in 2014 maybe, so it's coming up on 11 years old. So it's a really great disc for the wooded shots where you need to throw it on a hyzer and let it drift all the way over. When I'm playing on those wooded courses on tour or even here, I will more than likely always be throwing this yellow AVR3. Next up is the Jeremy Colleen AVR X3. Now this one is overstable. It out of my hand immediately wants to come out and fade. Now for the wind and even some upshots from the shorter, it's perfect. I can throw it on a little bit of an anhyzer and give it a little bit more distance and let it flex and drop right where I need it to. Next up, we're going to go mid-ranges. I only carry 3 mids in my bag. I'll kind of give you my thought process for that. But we'll go stable first. And it's the Gator. This is a Star Gator. It's a little flat. I don't know if the camera can see that. But this is really good for the 350 to 370, and I can push it closer to 4 if I need to, but it's straight with light stability. And that's really what I'm looking for on windy days on more open courses. In the woods, I don't use it as much unless there's a tight flex I need to hit on an approach or something of that nature. But the Gator has always worked out really well for me in that situation. Next up is possibly my favorite disc in the Innova lineup. This is my workhorse on almost any course. Halo Rock 3, and it's got my logo dyed on the rim and Legit Disc Golf, my apparel company, sponsored in the middle. Dyed by Jedi Discs, shout out to him out of Rochester, New York. But this disc, the reason I love it is it sits deeper in my hand, which is really comfortable for me. And I really like it for the 400 range. I have a lot of control out of my hand with this flight because it'll have that hyzer release and end up drifting flat to a little bit right and stay there. It's a very consistent disc for me, and that's the reason I throw it the most. Next up is a 2017 Nate Sexton Mako. I don't think it's coming out of my bag unless I lose it. This disc is amazing. It's a little bit older, so it's a stiffer Champion than maybe some of the newer stuff, and it holds the line really well because of this little dome. And honestly, I'll bring this out on 350 to 375 in the woods too, but I really like it for a little bit shorter, close to that 300 range. And if it's a little bit farther, most of the time, especially in the woods, I'll pick it over the rock just because I know once it hits the ground, it'll probably get 30 or so more feet of sliding than the rock will, since the rock has that bead and this is a smooth surface on the bottom, and it fits my hand really well. And that for me is the biggest factor, or the majority factor, when it comes to choosing a disc and what I'm going to throw. Next up, we'll go fairways. We'll go stable first again. All right, this one is my exclusive forehand disc. This is a 1.2 Metal Flake Draco. This one is the Calvin Heimberg one, and it works extremely well for me when I'm throwing the forehands. The reason I picked the Draco over the Firebird is the Firebird is just a little bit faster and a little bit smaller rim. I have found a lot of consistency with these Dracos and the flight I want out of them, and they fit my hand really well for those forehands and usually die about 330. And that's exactly what I'm looking for when it comes to far approaches or forehands off of the tee. Next up is possibly the most overstable Thunderbird I have ever thrown. I got it from Legit Disc Golf. It is a super domey champion color. I've probably lost this disc 3 or 4 times and just always find its way back to me. It is unfortunately the color of the grass most times, and it is perfect for those flex shots for me. It's a little domey, so it goes a little bit farther, and when it comes out, it tends to just fall, and that is exactly what I want it for. This is exclusively backhand for me most of the time. Next up is Halo Thunderbird. I did give the Rock 3 the saying it was the best and the most thrown in my bag, but I might be wrong. This is a close runner-up if it isn't the top. This is my Halo Thunderbird. I throw this shot as much, if not more, than anything else in my bag. This shot will be the hyzer flip up to flat for the 450 and under range, maybe pushing it 475 if there's a little tailwind or downhill. This disc flies amazingly well for me. It fits my hand fantastic, and I love the flight out of it. This one is a 170 weight, so it's a little bit lighter. It'll hold that lines for me a little bit better than maybe the 175, but I really enjoy getting them stable and then slowly beating them into just that perfect flight. Next up is the TL3. This one is my wood shot disc. If I need a hyzer flip to turn pretty quickly and just hold and drift and never come back fighting out of that turnover, then this is a disc I'm choosing. This is a great runner-up to the TL, which I had in my bag for a long time, but eventually I kicked it out because this is just a little bit faster. And I enjoy the flight of this disc a lot. Next up is the Halo Sidewinder. This is my roller disc. I've only just started learning to throw rollers as of 2024 because I realize how much it can come into play if you really need it and if you're good at it. So I've put a lot of time and work into being able to learn to control my angles, and this disc I found is the best for that. I had a Roadrunner for a while, but I'm really enjoying the Sidewinder. It's a little bit more stable and holds that line just a little bit longer. Next up is my drivers. I'll start with my most stable one, the Halo Juggernaut. I cannot tell you how many times I've thrown this into a 30-mile-an-hour wind and it has not even attempted to turn over. This is absolutely my workhorse when it comes to any overly windy rounds, and I would probably compare it more to a stable Max or maybe even an old PD2, and it is amazing. Most of the time it's not very useful if there's no wind, because you won't get very much distance out of it, and there might be better discs to fill a slot. I definitely don't throw it all the time, but when it does come to wind, it flies really well for me. Next up, this is a new addition to the bag. I have not thrown these but maybe 10 times. This is a Halo Wraith. I put it in the bag for longer forehands because it fits the forehand really well for me, and for those hyzer flip backhands that are a little bit shorter than what you would need a destroyer or a boss for. And I think the flight of this disc has gotten me really far in the short time that I've thrown it, and I'll continue to play with it. But as of right now, the Halo Wraith is a new addition to my bag. Next up, this is a Calvin Heimberg Destroyer. I got this when I was in Minnesota from a small disc golf shop there around St. Paul. And this has quickly become my 500-foot disc. There's a lot of consistency in its flight and a lot of late stability, which I really appreciate for those longer drives where you need to be consistent. Now we have the 2024 Halo Destroyers. This disc flies almost the exact same as the one I just pulled out of my bag, the Calvin Heimberg, and I love the colorway, but it flies amazing. And when this other one gets beat up, this is my secondary to replace it, which is why it's already in the bag. I'm getting it worked in, trying to learn it, figure out how it flies. All right, this is my bomber disc. This would be the one I go for when I'm trying to just absolutely crush it on an open par 4 or par 5 and really need to get down there. This is my Halo Boss. It's a little bit less stable. It's still max weight, but it's a little bit less stable than a lot that you'll find. And I like that because I want it to go a little bit straighter out of my hand. So that way it doesn't have as much dive at the end or fade. It can kind of just push forward the entire flight. This bad boy is a very stable Halo Boss. This I will use anytime I need to throw that big hyzer and get it to drop to the ground quickly. So 450 big hyzer, I'll more than likely be reaching for this orange Halo Boss, or a forehand 375, 400, 420, anything in that range that's a little bit farther than my Draco, I'll more than likely be reaching for this Halo Boss. That's all of my discs. Other than that, accessories on the bag. I have a Zach Nash keychain, USDGC pin. I got this little duck that my wife got me. A bunch of patches, Zach Nash logo patch, USDGC patch, American flag patch. I have a mini from NADGT. I don't know if you can see that, 2022 MPO champion. A beautiful mini. I love using that. I've got the Katrina Allen Squatch Bag colorway, and it has been an amazing bag for me so far. I also have a rangefinder. These come in really handy on those longer par 4s. You didn't get to practice as much, and you really need to tune in that distance and figure out what you need to throw. I also have some chalk bags. I go through chalk bags like crazy. It changes for me almost weekly what chalk bag I use depending on if I've lost it or not. But right now this is a drive bags. They've worked out really well for me in the past, and that's what I'm using right now. And that will be all. Thank you for watching my 2024 in the bag. This is Zach Nash. If you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'll be posting more videos coming up soon, and I appreciate it.